planning session to arrange meetings with each of its 5 advisory boards. We schedule one a month. This is the third in the series of 5. We've invited the Planning Commission. Mr. Craig Kraft is here, as well as other representatives from the Planning Commission. And we've set aside 15 minutes for some dialogue between the two groups.
All right, let's dialogue. Let's see. What's on the... Well, I'm just going to say thanks so much for working on Chapter 16. I mean, that's just been... I was going over this and trying to figure out how we were going to approach this, and I'd like any comments from you if you had any feelings about the best way for the board to approach this. But that is yeoman's work and mind-numbing, I suspect, over the course of a while. So thanks so much for working on that.
Yeah, mind-numbing. Well, we debated long and hard about how to try to pursue the tackle that. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, and I think, and then we felt a little hamstrung at times without having the availability of the attorney, but I think we worked through that okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any great advice for you other than the sort of the thing that I think was most helpful for us was the staff's attempt to tell us the significant material changes to the code. It's been completely reorganized, so that was the biggest. That's the biggest change. But then there are material changes to the code itself, and so we tended to focus on those and spend time, discussing and debating those, making a list of things we wanted to pull from that for later discussion, so we could first work our way through the entire code, and then go back and revisit those things that we thought were worth debating, and then at that point, then also moving forward with our public hearing and discussing those things in front of a public hearing. Mm-hmm. So that was our approach, given sort of the magnitude of the effort.
And my understanding, is there a running tally, like a 3-list running tally of things that you want to potentially do in the future? I was reading the minutes here, and so things, I should turn to it, but like substantive changes that were being kept track of and things to address in the future. Was that?
No, we've done that. We've worked all the way through that. What you have is our version of the code.
Okay.
So and to the extent that you could review those specific changes or recommendations that we've made, and minutes about how we got to those decisions, I think those are the things probably. I guess I would suspect that you would want to spend a lot of time on. Sandy may have a different opinion. She's dug into it, I think, pretty deep. At least she had in the past. So.
And also reading the minutes, maybe to approach it slightly more difficult subject. It seems like at least some members felt that the Planning Commission was not hamstrung, but not appreciated, perhaps, or didn't have enough authority. I was trying to glean that from the Planning Commission.
No, I think as anything, we're here to serve, and we just want to take it, be here, to help, make those take burden off of being, a trustee if it's appropriate, and to the extent that some boards have given more responsibility to the Planning Commission over the years, and some have taken it back over time, and so on. That's the piece I think that was talked about and debated. So, but we recognize that the ultimate responsibility and authority lies with the elected representatives. So,
well,
I mean, you guys want to feel free to come up and add anything.
I'm sorry. This is
members of the Planning Commission that are here. So, but I guess that's.
I've been on the commission for a long time, and I've seen the ebb and flow of power, if you will, or decision making, or we want you to make these decisions, we don't want you to make the decisions. I think that's just part of serving on Planning Commission, which is not elected before, to make the decisions that we're asked to make.
I think, and I want to sort of try to weigh that as well. And my stance was that you've got a committee whose focus is land use code and planning, and who can spend the time and take the time to deal with those issues. And to allow the planning commission to make those decisions, the appropriate decisions, seems to make more sense than trying to take our information that may have been processed over several meetings or even a couple of hours, and have a board try to absorb that in a few minutes and make a decision or change the decision or whatever. And trying to figure out where that balance is to what truly are land use type decisions that can be made in the planning commission, allow them to make it. So that's where
And there's also a discussion about the major public improvements. I wasn't sure. I mean, we'll see it obviously when it comes to us for our review, but what was the end result of that discussion? Is that something the planning commission
I
is?
think it was basically left the way it was written in the current code in terms of the things we would actually see. I don't think is there substantive changes, Matt? I don't think so. So, but to the extent that we provide good input on things like that, I don't think we provide a lot of good input on engineering type of activities in terms of major public improvements. We're not going to give you a lot of good feedback on a drainage ditch, redo or something. But things that are visible in the town and have to do with land use and other public improvements like parks and the roundabouts and those kinds of things. I think we provide a lot of good insight into those projects. So.
If we were to, which I think we're considering, reaffirming or reviewing and making sure we are still, if the town center vision is still our vision, I think that's in our goals for this upcoming year. How would you like to play in that kind of process?
Well, I think at this point, it's still very much a vision, and it's going to come forth by what the market's going to dictate ultimately. But as to what a developer can bring to the table and what types of things can be built, and it's not going to be built in a day. But the planning commission and the members, I think, want to be very involved with how that comes together. And of course, we'll see it as part of any development plan, but to the extent that if you want to revisit the vision and those kinds of things.
Well, we've had a change in board. It's been a couple of years, so it's kind of like still our vision. I think it is, but I think we're thinking about looking and making sure about that.
I think also, I think we're due for I'm not sure where we are with the comprehensive plan. We try to do that every 5, and I think that we're probably due, if I remember the timing correctly.
I think we're going on 10.
So, there's not much left, but I guess I'm saying that there might be a logical nexus between the comprehensive plan and then looking at the town center and kind of weighing in. I'm not sure that, I think like you said, that the market is going to, dictate a whole bunch about what's going to happen there, but I want to make sure that there's enough communication about the town center and the other properties. There's some stuff off 88. There's not much left, as everybody's well aware, but there's a few parcels left that we need to figure out exactly what we're doing with that.
My own opinion, I think it's such an important piece of the development. We want to make sure we get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now there's a good balance on the planning commission ideas and where the people are coming from. I think we can use.
Well, sorry. As a trustee, I value your advice as a planning commission heavily, and definitely want you to be a part of the town vision for the town center, 100%, in any capacity that you are able to and want to. So that's how I perceive at least that entity.
Having participated in the first several of Chapter 16 meetings, it was a root canal. It was a very difficult process, and I can't imagine having had the subsequent full year on it. So I highly commend you for, I'm sure the output's going to be good, but I highly commend you for just plain old stick-to-itiveness and being able to put some solid attention to it. What I was very encouraged in reading on your 2010 work plan number 4 says focus on the impacts and opportunities for the town of the ConocoPhillips site. I'm a bit unclear as a newbie on this board how into the opportunities and the visioning the Planning Commission has traditionally been. So I'd just sort of throw it back to you. How do you see, you're now done with Chapter 16, and hopefully you've got a little more time on your docket to maybe get into the visioning and the conceptualizing and the suggesting. How do you see your commission getting involved in those things?
Well, we obviously would love to have a lot to say over what happens, but we won't. But what I think we do have some input on is knowing that there's going to be connectivity between that site and the impacts. People who choose to live in Superior as opposed to Minnesota or Brookfield or wherever and work there. How do we help them meet that sort of connectivity issue, and particularly in a low impact, low environmental impact way, which is supposed to be the hallmark of this development. So, providing the input on the trail connections and the things that I know ProStack will be doing as well, but still, looking at it from a broader planning perspective and what impacts those, a larger development of that scale will have on the town center and on other parts of Superior. I think it's something that we would be remiss if we weren't looking at the impacts of any large development or large issue or transportation issue or anything that affects the town. So we have requested an opportunity, asked the staff to try to set up an opportunity to get in front of the ConocoPhillips folks and just meet, rather than going through one of the public ones, which we probably sort of missed out on to some degree. But I don't know if the map's been really successful in trying to get that set up. But I know they've been very proactive themselves with reaching out to the community, and so we're hoping we will get that opportunity to just chat.
No, Lisa?
Thanks, and I apologize for being late. There's no reflection on you. I wanted to thank you because I really do value what you guys have. Whenever I've gone to meetings, you ask questions that are drilling down on the things that I think are important, along with a bunch of things that are important that I would never have thought of, and I really appreciate that expertise. Thanks very much. It's highly valued. I liked number 4 also because I like use the word proactively. So the fact that you're looking sort of for opportunities, you're moving out there and trying to see what might happen is really great. I think that's a great role. The third thing I wanted to ask was about Chapter 16, and to what degree some of those I guess this is a personal question, your personal opinion or the committee's opinion or whatever. Do you think it provides enough clarity about where PC comes in and where it doesn't, and what kinds of developments it does or doesn't come in on, or is that clear to you? I know the board's been a little bit whatever.
I think the way it's drafted now, it's very clear as to what the duties and responsibilities of the commission are.
You're satisfied.
And to the extent that you may have, I would say that would be something we would appreciate you spending time looking at, as those the matrices that show the approval process and see where maybe we streamline those approvals, because a lot of things end up still basically review and comments from the planning commission as opposed to decision at the planning commission level. But that's again up to you as to how you decide that.
And that was my last question, which had to do with whether the planning commission provides advice or decisions or what. So.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood the question.
Well, when you make a decision, I guess the question is it advice, recommendation, decision? What is it to?
Well, I think the intent
know
of
what's
the
been happening,
process,
but
the way it's drafted, was to avoid the call-up, so that it wasn't unclear to a given developer as to where the final decision was going to be made, because before it's sort of ambiguous as to whether they would, the decision would be made at the planning commission level and then potentially be called up. In this case, basically that's been scrapped, and you're getting a resolution from the planning commission as to what we think the decision should be, as on the advice side, and then the decision is yours. And that's fair.
Yeah, we discussed that we, as a body, need to be more succinct too. We need to really, being that we're not making a decision, we're passing forward comments, that we need to really agree on what our comments are and really set forth precise comments to you rather than some vagueness. So I think we discussed that too, being really succinct in what we sent forward.
And that's exactly what I'm looking for, is the precise and detail-oriented information that you are doing. And I would not want something vague, because I can easily get that on my own. But I'm looking for your advice, very detail-oriented. The more detail, the better, in my opinion. That's me.
And the vagueness too came from, within the code, the existing code, that whether the decision, once you got through the planning commission, you still would have to go through a whole other public hearing process to the town board. That was a challenge for developers to try to meet deadlines and know when they were approved and when they weren't approved.
So is the whole code now reviewed, or do we still have more to go? It's done. Maybe.
No, I mean, it's in the form that we,
Done by
that
us.
we, unless you send it back to us, I guess, for
Okay.
further work. But, and I would say this, the staff and the attorney did, I thought, a really good job of paring it down to a more streamlined code that's easier to read, follows more through the development process. And, you don't have to flip back and forth so much. As Andy can attest to, trying to find your way through that thing is the existing code is cumbersome.
Anything that has 100 less pages and 35,000 less words is appreciated.
Except for the unintended consequences.
Right. So what do you think that you need from the board? Do you have concerns or issues, anything that you want to bring up? I mean, we have your work plan, so I appreciate that, but.
I think one of the items that really stonewalled us in the beginning, which you probably know about, so we just didn't have red line, was the changes were so dramatic.
Right.
There really wasn't a good way to do a true red line document. But what that means, as Trustee Swell was alluding to, is we don't know what got missed, if anything. So we have, and this isn't a diss on staff or on planning commission, but we have a group of people who are trying to tell you what changed instead of a clear electronic picture of what changed. Then you have one group that is able to, we had one group basically that told us all the changes, and we trusted that happened. For us to try to go figure that out on top of it would.
There's a certain amount of leap of faith in this.
Yeah.
It's advice from the attorney as to what things were not material things were not left in it, were taken out. And I guess the leap of faith that we ultimately made was, okay, we're going to go through the code and ask staff and the attorneys to identify those things for us so that we could pull them for discussion and try to make sure they were captured again in the way that we felt was appropriate based on all of the kind of our collective experience on the planning commission. So, there's no doubt, but I think if you didn't have a code at all and you took this one that we've worked our way through, you would say, yeah, this is a perfectly good land use code. And so,
what changed, what we missed, what we didn't catch.
Right.
The unintended consequences.
Exactly.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
But those are things you should be paying attention to, and with Trustee Sorelli having the experience he does, that might be on him a bit too.
So I'm going to read it all?
You're going to read it all.
Read both of them. Read the old one and read the new one.
And your summary is due next.
Yeah, right.
Bob, if you would take that one step further, because I found it very disconcerting not to have a red line in some way, shape, or form, a modified red line or an adapted or whatnot. Having been through the process, I always like to learn lessons. Is there a different way you would have proceeded if you could do this in a perfect world?
It's hard to say because the changes were made, right? And they were, the attorney took it and it was done, and yeah, all of us sat up there and said, boy, why would you have a red line? But we weren't in the middle of that process. We weren't dealing with it. So.
I guess I would, looking back at it, the rewrite essentially occurred before it came to us, and as opposed to going through the sort of process and material changes first in the existing code to come up with those, and then go through and do the rewrite for the streamlining of the process and those kinds of things. That may have improved the process. I think that part of that leap of faith was what things were left out and which we couldn't see because we didn't have the red line, and as opposed, and then sort of working through it all after the fact. That was more disconcerting. So that would be my lessons learned there. Maybe whether that really would have helped the process, I don't know. I don't think there was money to spend with the attorneys, so they did it. But I'm sure both avenues were fraught with peril.
Yeah.
So what's next step on your agenda? I mean, for Planning Commission in general.
Well, on our work plan, we're supposed to review the green building standards, so you can fill us in on exactly where those stand if there's
Not sure.
a process for moving forward. This is the 2010 plan. Town center, county shelves, comp plan, maybe. And we haven't talked about that, but specifically it's not on the work plan, but I think you're right. It's probably time to revisit that.
Great. Well, thanks a whole bunch, really. I mean, it's a whole bunch of work, and I really appreciate it. So,
Thank you all very much.
Anything else? Great.
We should get together more often.
Yep.
We should.
All right. Thanks. Everybody have a nice evening. Let's see. That brings us to the same topic.
That segues into how the board would like to go ahead and handle its review of Chapter 16. And this was not by any master design, but the idea that we just had the discussion with the Planning Commission, who's just concluded a 14-month process of undertaking its review and evaluation of the changes in Chapter 16, how the board would like to assume that task. Staff's given you 5 different alternatives that we think are all viable, well, some more viable than others, but viable alternatives on how the board may wish to proceed. Don't need to list those, but open to your suggestions and comments.
I have a question. Since the staff did prepare a number of documents to assist the Planning Commission in going through their process, and then the Planning Commission worked on those, and I don't think we should jump into public hearings right away. I think we'd be appropriate to have some work sessions so we could consider those kinds of materials and get as much of that stuff that they did to us. So, the things that staff prepared for the Planning Commission as to what significant changes were made. I think they did it by sections that were covered by chapter and for each meeting. And so if we get those kind of materials, as well as the significant revisions as identified by the Planning Commission, that would be helpful to us.
And the list that I was referencing was, so there's, and I don't know if they're listed, but there's items identified by the Planning Commission for future consideration, items that the Planning Commission identified that could be incorporated into the revised code, and questions for the attorney. So I don't know that if there's a running tally of that. If there is, that probably would be very helpful to review.
That report was done. We worked through each of those in the draft. So those things that we pulled for later consideration or revisited, what you got are those changes.
So, if staff has that, just so we can understand the thinking process associated with that, I think that also would be illustrative. And I'm certain that I don't want to go through it. I probably will read both codes, realistically, but I don't think that the town board should do that. And my preference would be that we would act upon, make sure that we review any major changes in terms of policy for sure. But I can't imagine the board going through this page by page. I don't think it would be productive, and I would trust the Planning Commission that they spent a whole bunch of time working on that.
Has anybody, or is anybody charged with the, I guess maybe the attorneys are, but of going through and looking for the OG's kind of thing when you have this complete revision?
Clearly, and the reference that the staff did the review and a total rewrite of Chapter 16, recognized that was a compilation of both staff, most specifically Matt and Phyllis, who work most closely with this particular code, Fred Fox, our consulting planner, and the legal team. That's who came up collectively with the draft, the recommendation for a new streamlined Chapter 16. That was the genesis, that was the basis on which this process started. Then we went back and tried to, if you will, almost resurrect the changes that were done as best you could, recognizing that it wasn't chapter to chapter, that there was a significant streamlining of the whole code. So yes, we can pull together all of the things that staff had pulled together, it had recommended, the staff committee had pulled together in its first draft, all of the items that were identified by the Planning Commission. They addressed all of those and many that they found themselves. There's some issues in conflict between what had been recommended by that staff review committee and what is being recommended to you by the Planning Commission.
But-
We can summarize all of those.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of,
And if you're comfortable synthesizing that those are the issues that you want to spend your time on, then we can start putting together a calendar. And my suggestion was going to be either alternating work sessions, more likely a couple of off Monday work sessions devoted exclusively to that review, and ideally between the months of July and August, because starting in September, we're going to be devoting work sessions to budget review. So I'm saying you've got about the next 8 weeks in which to try to get this task done.
Okay. Andy?
There's a huge amount of material to cover, so I agree with what's just been worked out here, major, supplemented as possible with the off-meeting discussion, which basically we're presented to by staff to identify and educate, inform.
if you could get it done between July 4th and July 21st.
That happens to be your
Are you gone?
absence.
So, I guess to the extent possible, it'd be great to not just have sort of a higher level summary, but if there were bullets that people were worried about or wanted to make sure were addressed, or their direction that they were making with their edits, that'd be great. Not only a high level summary, but if there's interim documents that we could review, just if we have the time, that'd be great.
Again, you can have as much as you need and want.
It'd
We're
be great
trying.
to have it, and if we have whatever we have time to review, we could review.
I would love it if members of the Planning Commission came to those meetings as well, so they could articulate points that were a little
Because it was-
That would be great.
frustrating.
Because it was so fun the first go-around, you'd hate to, it's another opportunity. But, I think that you're right. And some of the other materials, obviously, there must be cover documents for all these meetings, and probably having those to review as well would be helpful.
Thanks.
We will be getting the whole digital file, correct?
I'm sure it's digitized, so I can't imagine it being, I mean, the code is, right?
It's Chapter
electronic.
16.
You'll need both old and new.
And we're going to get the original and the new,
You good?
along with.
We all get.
You all have the original, but if you'd like
one.
another copy,
We have the original. It's also
I was
online.
I don't have
I
it
was
with me, so.
dusting it off in my downstairs storage.
It's on the internet too.
It is on the internet, yeah.
Devoted?
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'll get it from there then, thanks.
So I think that sounds like pretty.
and you're more comfortable with the off Mondays?
Trying to do this
Whatever
in if we do it in a 1-hour session, we're going to be doing it till 2011. So, I think we just have to, honestly.
Okay.
Again, July 21st. That's your target date to be finished.
And I'm also going to miss some of those meetings, but I can maybe provide comments by
Absolutely.
email, or if we can do something like Skype or something, I'm happy to do that.
There is no Skype at Oneida Lake.
There is at Corpus.
If there is, I'm going to kill it.
Skype it. All right, so seems like we have direction about how to proceed, so.
And then we'll start polling to make sure that board members are
Who's here,
available on those
right.
off Mondays.
Yep.
Starting with the first Tuesday, July 5th. Or, I'm sorry, July 6th.
Okay, very good. Board goals?
Well, I had one comment on one of them, Scott, and I think I'd made it to you once. On the investigation of the Little League baseball field, and probably as a result of my comments, it had been put in the goal as investigate the viability or something on Town 9. I would like to amend that to investigate the viability or need for a Little League baseball field, followed up with
In town.
where in town if it's needed.
And take out the reference of Town 9?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
It's the only,
I
it just
agree.
seemed logical because we're talking about a ball field there, but it's a totally different thing, really, and so just,
And that means discussing and whatever the whole issue of program, not program, no, what's that jazz?
no, if you have a Little League ball field, it's going to be programmed.
Right.
And that's, if you do that, that's going to be programmed,
Yep.
so.
Are we applying for any of the people?
Well, let's,
Amendments?
sure, but let's make sure that we get through with this as a town board.
Sure.
So,
Again, as a preface, this is a recollection or reflection of Matt's and my notes of 9 different voices over a 4-hour period as we were covering a multitude of issues. So if there's any wordsmithing, nitpicking, this is the time in which to do it, because it doesn't reflect, it was just our recollection, our cumulative notes from that particular night. If we miss something, I think we had this discussion, the discussion at the retreat was, let's change create to investigate. A subsequent change is, let's not be so site-specific.
Yeah,
But if we missed others. Now, I did take the liberty of assigning timelines to many of these things in anticipation that once we get a consensus that this is how the board wants its 2010 goals to be edited, that you'll also have some expectation on when you're going to start seeing things. We did not talk about dates, timelines, and prioritization of these things at the retreat.
okay, and Sandy?
So following that timeline discussion on this particular one, you didn't put a timeline on it, did you? Do you know what your,
Because it was a long term. It was out.
Okay.
It was outside the window of 2010.
and do you foresee that being something assigned to ProStack to investigate?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the operative word here is need, to investigate the need of a creation of a Little League ball field. I don't know if we need it.
Sure. Well,
Those are
that would
fine
be
edits.
that would be the stepwise. So you identify need. So if there's no need, obviously, then there's no need to go any further. But if there's a need identified, then to go to talking about facilities or locations. My pulse of the community is that there's about 120 people playing Little League baseball, and they go to Louisville because there's not one here. So, I mean, my gut feeling is that there's probably a need, but that's not for me to say necessarily. ProStack should probably weigh in on that. Anything else? So the next steps just for this, though, would be you'll bring this back at the next meeting with all these changes incorporated into that.
As well as the work program, in terms of what you can expect to see, what benchmarks, timelines. Because we do try to build this into your future agendas. When's it reasonable for us to be whether it's an advisory group or staff, how much time it might take. So that's where as best I could, I came in with some dates.
Scott, I think you said at that retreat that the first page under financial management, staff to identify 10 largest third-party contractor vendor relationships. But you said there's a huge drop-off in the size of those, the dollar size of those. Is in your opinion, is 10 just putting unnecessary work in there? I mean,
I think when you see the list, and you'll see the list first, that's
Okay.
already been developed. We have
Okay.
not developed it. You'll quickly say, some of these don't rise to the level of development
Okay.
construction.
Okay.
$30,000 and $40,000
Yeah.
service contracts,
Right.
janitorial services, and those kinds of things, I doubt is what you wanted to get at.
right.
Anything else?
And it was the performance measurement, which is actually going to take some time, and why this isn't available until October. I've had top 10, 12 third-party vendor contractor relationships probably within the week of the retreat, and I'll be sharing it with you very, very shortly. And I think at that point, the board will say, these are the 4, these are the 6 that we're really interested in drilling down on.
And if we get that feedback, then you can not do work on
Exactly.
the vast majority.
Exactly.
So the sooner we get that, the sooner we can cut them out,
Exactly.
the sooner you can be
Yeah.
streamlined.
Very good. Anything else from the board? Anybody?
Well, I had a
Yes.
thought,
Oh, okay.
and it didn't come out of our retreat, but since nothing was talked about changes-wise under personnel management, I was wondering about whether we wanted as a goal development of a personnel review process and format that could be used throughout town, or just leave that off of this goal statement.
I assume personal reviews are done by the town manager, so maybe you can, actually, if I don't get involved in any of that, I don't know if you want to review.
We have a very, very well-defined establishment of goals and annual performance reviews. Not limited to annual, but there's annual written in each of the files. Done between middle of November and middle of December, on which January 1 merit compensation adjustments are determined. And there's nothing magical about the instrument that gets used, but the communication, and it requires that the supervisor complete the evaluation, that there be a one-on-one meeting between the supervisor and the subordinate, that they're signing off, that goals for the coming year and past year be reviewed and established, and effectively agreed to by signing it. At least you're being made aware of. But it's the communication process, more so than even the written instrument, that I find to be most valuable. And then candidly, while I do it for all my direct reports, I don't scrutinize every other one that's done within the organization. But I do look for symmetry between the evaluation and the evaluation scores within departments and the subsequent merit recommendations. And when I see deviations, it's a red flag and it gets pulled and reviewed. So,
That sounds like you don't need this. Sounds like you got it covered.
for 25 of your 26 employees.
Right. Anybody have any thoughts about this? Sandy?
I would like to see a blank one if we could, just for interest's sake.
Sure.
That would be great.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Yeah. If anybody has any public comments on it, that's fine. I think I said it, but I don't know if you ever.
We have handouts, but mostly what you guys just covered takes away some of my worry and concern. And it was, I was asking for the removal of, from the goals, the creation of a Little League baseball field on Town 9 as a long-range and high-priority capital project.
You must have been thinking real hard on that we picked up the fives.
And for the main reasons that it's a $350,000 price tag, the site isn't appropriate and the process hasn't been followed. I have it electronically, so if anyone would like me to give it to them electronically, I can. I'm not going to burden you with it tonight because I feel like it's been.
Okay, great. Okay.
Let's do graphic design.
Yeah, maybe.
Oops. Might save those for post-it.
You know, I'll take it electrically.
I can give it to you electronically.
Yeah, that would be
You can
perfect.
put Amelia's.
Maybe you don't want it.
Thanks.
What'd you say?
Anything else about this? Okay. Let's keep plowing ahead then.
And we'll strike the last one, or be able to put the last one to rest very quickly, which was the signatures for municipal elections. According to your town attorney, we don't have the authority to change that.
Just because does anybody have, or is it
Statutory.
because we're statutory?
Yep.
Another reason to.
There we go, let's bring that up again.
It is a shame, though, that,
I
you
don't
know.
want to say those words again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Just had a feeling that was the case.
Yeah, I had a feeling too. Next, meeting agenda items.
There will be a couple of ads, but let me walk through it as the agenda hopefully will start getting a little bit more substantial than it is tonight. Agenda items C and D all pertain to the ground-mounted solar installations that are being proposed at the town's water and wastewater treatment plant. The first one is actually a purchase agreement for the two 100 kW solar installations at a price tag just under $800,000, $798,000 and change. When we started this bidding process many months ago, those units were priced at $1.125 million, and because of the price of solar panels declining precipitously, we feel we've got ourselves a great bargain at this particular price. We do have competitive bids, though. Second portion of that would be a lease agreement with Key Equipment Finance, and we're proposing that we finance the purchase of these solar panels through a 5-year fixed-rate lease. I'm going to read you quickly the numbers. 60 monthly payments at $1,900 a month with a balloon payment on the 60th month of $79,000. Our total purchase price for the $800,000 in solar panels is $193,000. That's because we get a $400,000 XL rebate and a 30% federal tax credit by using a third-party purveyor, which is key. So we're effectively able to buy the panels for about 24 cents on the dollar. We own it after 5 years. We get the benefit of free power on day one. I haven't seen another deal like this anywhere. Very, very pleased with it.
Bigger sell the rest of town, man.
Agenda item E is a proposed lease agreement with Centro Properties. We talked about it ever so briefly. It's been on our goals list for years, but we're in the position now of entering into a lease agreement to be able to provide the Boulder County Sheriff's Department with a somewhat larger space for a police substation in Superior Marketplace. This specific space, if you're familiar with the building, is the space that had previously been occupied by Brad Hughes. So it's 3 doors down from IHOP. The terms of the lease agreement are there is no cost to the town. We are responsible for utilities and any interior improvements. We took a tour of the space last week. There may be one very small, 5-foot wide partition and doorway to be installed within the space. We anticipate being able to occupy the space within 30 days of execution of the lease, and we think we can complete the entire transition. Telephone lines, computer lines, new furnishings for a cost less than $5,000. And they have agreed, while it's a month-to-month lease, they have agreed, and there will be language within the lease that says if at any time they need that space for a viable retail tenant, they will find us another space within the center. But it accomplishes our goals of getting them out of the cubbyhole that they've been at over at Fire Station number 5 and putting them in where our largest commercial activity is. So very excited about finally making that happen.
Will we need to do signage for them?
Yes, we've met with the sheriff's staff. Boulder County's planning on doing it. We may want to put some sort of a lighted sign on Center Drive facing the roundabout. But they're going to have decals and the like in the windows on both ends. It'll be accessible from the northern end.
Okay.
Items F and G, bids and an easement agreement for the Rock Creek Trail connection. This is a trail that, a new trail, runs east-west, connecting the intersection of McCaslin and Rock Creek Parkway, wrapping around the Key Equipment Building, and accessing the county's new north-south trail that'll be going from original town down to Colton. Budgeted at $200,000. Our current estimate is about $144,000. We're out for bids right now. We expect that we'll have this, both the purchase, the installation of the construction contract, as well as the easement agreement. And candidly, a lot of our discussions with that particular building owner, we have great relations with him now as a result of our recent discussions with both Webroot and Key Equipment. Do have an ad. We were hoping to have it on for tonight's meeting, but we didn't get the paperwork yet. But it will be the acceptance of the GOCO grant, $150,000 that was recently awarded to the town for the improvements at Community Park East. And the work session consists of 2 items: the Morgul recap, both financial and recommendations for changes in next year's plan, and then the beginning of our review of the 3 November ballot propositions, Proposition 101 and Constitutional Amendments 60 and 61. Mr. Nillis will be leading those discussions. We've invited representatives from this Colorado Municipal League. Unfortunately, they were already booked, but we think we can at least start talking about it throughout the state. But we think we'll be able to at least start that discussion, and we're focusing in on what the potential adverse implications specifically to the town of Superior are.
Okay. And anything left on the digest to
The
go
only
over?
item that we didn't already cover, we've already obviously talked about the police substation, we talked about the GOCO grant. It is public knowledge that Key Equipment Finance has renewed their lease at the 1000 South McCaslin building, the intersection of McCaslin and Rock Creek Parkway. I believe it's a 7-year lease that they'll be renewing. They will have a slightly smaller footprint, about 55,000 square feet. Right now, they're a little over 90,000 square feet. We've not heard what that means in terms of employment, but they're staying. We were effectively in a bidding war with the City of Westminster, and we've prevailed.
Okay, great. Anything else from the board?
I have, can I bring up something that's not on the agenda? Is this?
Yep,
we have
time,
a few
yep.
minutes. And tell me if I need to repeat it in the regular meeting. On July 27th, the library, Louisville Library Board and myself as our representative are going to start the process of putting together a community survey, both in Louisville and in Superior, of needs, wants, long-term, short-term. And I actually would like to have input on that survey, potential survey, ahead of going into that meeting. So I would invite any trustees who would like to participate in that. We can set up a meeting time, or if any trustee would like to appoint a community resident who is interested in this particular subject to sit in as well, or anybody in the audience, anybody who wants to, just to do a roundtable on this. And this, I think, will probably be a one-time opportunity to really get a handle on what it is we hope to see from that relationship and what unmet needs we have, and
So
everything.
is it for the whole district, well, for the
It's
whole
for-
area, Louisville and Superior?
Correct,
just-
but
yeah.
we are going to segment out the data by Superior, so that this is also our opportunity to ask questions unique to Superior as well.
And we don't have to think about the finances associated with this, just what the
Well,
desires
they
are.
have no finances, nor do we have any additional finances, so the intent is to work within, but still be able to, identify the way in which libraries are changing, digital needs versus hard copy needs, workshops, programs that our constituents, based on, the different demographics we have, young children, young adults, middle-aged, old adults, because they're very eager to change it up to help accommodate what it is we hope to see there. So contact me, I guess, with names of individuals, or if you yourself would like to sit in on that, let's make it as complete for our purposes as we can.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we take a few minutes and come back at 7 o'clock for the regular meeting.
So, you know, we may Delia's coming.
All right, we will wait.
Hold your gavel 1 minute.
I need to gobble.
Trying to click on my report here. It's about page.
I'll cede my time to you.
Thank you.
He was walking in, wasn't he?
They've got
got
a
stopped.
interesting discussion going on out there about original town parks.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for June 28, 2010, and Phyllis, if you call the roll.
Sure. Mayor Andrew.
Yes. What is it?
I'm here.
I'm here too.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Elia Gagoris.
I'm here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Chris Hansen. Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Lisa Skumatz.
Here.
Deborah Williams.
Here.
Town Manager Scott Randall.
Here.
Here.
Counselor Carol Sargent.
Thanks. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Kokuras. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Brings us to item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Sorelli, would you like to start?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Trustee Skumatz?
I think the only thing I have to report is going to a CML conference, and I'll leave additional comment on that to Trustee Pennington, who also went, and Trustee Williams, who also went. The only other comment I'll make is that I ran for executive board, but I was unsuccessful. But I'm hoping to get the endorsement of the board for doing the policy committee, which I think will be a good situation toward a future run.
Okay. I think you can take it as unanimous opinion that we'd be happy to support you in whatever you might need from the board.
Definitely, yes.
Where the real power lies.
Anything else? I'm sorry.
No, I think that's it.
Attended an urban drainage meeting. Nothing in Boulder County was really discussed. There was some discussion about best practices to avoid vibration in construction issues that they're talking about, which may someday apply to us, but not at the moment. So I had a meeting with a medical group and an associated rehab facility that has some interest, well, they're looking around for larger sites and have looked throughout the 36 corridor. Their timeline is a few years, but I'm not sure if they're going to be proceeding and if Superior's on their list, but just wanted to let you know that that discussion was occurring. That's all I have. Trustee Williams?
Okay, mine's going to be a little lengthy, so get yourself something to drink. I attended a Louisville Library meeting with Trustee Pennington, and it was the Louisville Library Work Plan that was presented to the Louisville City Council, and it is obvious that Trustee Pennington is making a very positive connection with the library board there, and I just want to thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
I attended the Morgul Classic. I know I'm a little late, but I guess that's what happens when I miss a meeting. I attended the Classic as a volunteer and a spectator for all 3 days of the events, and wanted to congratulate all the details and their hired entities for an excellent job putting together a huge event in 4 short months. So I see it's on the look ahead for July 12th as far as a debriefing, so I look forward to seeing all the effort that staff needs to put in for this report to happen. So thank you there. I've been to a couple of Dr. Cog meetings, and recently we had a public meeting to approve additional CDOT projects and to receive ARA funds, and these funds are the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 that you often see signs on the U.S. and state highways for repair as you drive along. These federal dollars are provided to CDOT, Dr. Cog, and RTD for the Denver region. And all projects have been identified and applied to the TIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program within Dr. Cog, which will be voted upon at the July 21st board meeting. And this meeting is a very significant meeting, as there's many other issues that will be voted upon as well as that. The RTD's annual report on fast tracks is coming up as well. And Dr. Cog is a steward for regional issues, and in 1990 the Colorado State Senate passed a bill to give Dr. Cog the task of reviewing all of RTD's vehicle, technology, and finance plans in the future, as well as provide public hearings for formal public comment. RTD's annual report of the fast tracks falls under this definition for review, so that will be happening mid-July. Let's see here, what else do I have? Dr. Cog doesn't do only transportation, they also do air quality and water quality, and recently we approved the process of an air quality conformity modeling and testing for land use and travel demand now through 2035, as well as defining the roadways and the transit system networks to be monitored. And then there's another interesting thing that was presented. MetroQuest is a scenario planning tool that conducts public outreach on future growth for our region. And they conduct workshops for municipalities interested in exploring alternative future scenarios in urban growth, and such as urban footprint, housing choices, travel options, commuting time, air quality, resource usage. They create quite a mapping system, and it's quite impressive. And they're interested in finding out if we're interested in having them come for a workshop for our residents, our staff, and board members. And if we're interested, I could get the ball rolling with MetroQuest staff within Dr. Cog. So they come to your town, and I don't know if you've heard of this, MetroQuest. They just started in 2009, so it might be something that we might be interested just to see what the future would look like if the town center were built based on already what the vision is, or if we change the vision to different things. It would be interesting to see how that affects our entire community.
But it's-
I would.
Deborah, if I may, and then I won't mention anything, as we go into comp plan and town center, visioning, et cetera, this was fascinating, and I would encourage anybody interested, but definitely invite the advisory committees and planning commission in. They process your data immediately, so you can see how it all would work out on the screen if your city were built the way you wanted it to be built.
Right.
Boy, it's
And
fantastic.
they do have a website. Let's see here, it's denverregion.com MetroQuest, I think. Hold on, I can tell you that exactly. But you can actually look on their website and see how the entire area, the region, looks based on different views. Well, I don't have it. But
Maybe you could forward us that link.
I'd be happy to. In fact, it is denverregion.metroquest.com. But I'd be happy to forward that to anybody who's interested in looking at what the future for the Denver region is based on different scenarios. Okay, where am I? Also, there's a Dr. Cog orientation meeting August 26th. And any and all elected officials, board members, alternates are welcome. The public is welcome in the public, arena. And they just kind of give you a rundown of what Dr. Cog does and how important they are in the region. So if you're interested in coming, let me know. I'll be at that one, and I'll carpool with you.
Is it a daytime or, do you know?
It's in the evening, I think 6:30, their normal meeting. Not done yet. So sorry. I went to a CML conference update, and I wanted to update on all the different sessions I went to. However, I'm going to refer that to Sandy Pennington, Trustee Pennington, because we discussed maybe having an open forum and giving you feedback on all the different sessions, because we went to a number of sessions, and that's another whole page that I'll spare you on at the moment. So I am done.
Great, thanks. Trustee Gross.
I just want to apologize for missing the work session. I had some work that came up unexpectedly. I normally try to be here, but so.
Yeah, no worries, thank you. Trustee Pennington.
I just wanted to, for those of you who are new to this, it wasn't long ago that I didn't know Dr. COG stands for Denver Regional Council of Governments, as opposed to doctor as in Dr. Reefer. So Dr. COG is wholly a different entity. Four of us attended CML, Lisa, Deb, Chris, and myself. And I have to say, it was such time well spent. Wonderful. And our compliments to Kendra, did a presentation, and her law partner participated in a presentation on medical marijuana that I thought was really top rate. I saw news coverage of it later on. I didn't realize there were news reporters there at the time, but it was top rate. I myself have 6 or 8 ideas I'd like to discuss more broadly with board members, and then upon discussion with the other 3 board participants, what we'd like to propose is either an off week session that the public can come to as well, or maybe in front of the July 12th meeting at 5 p.m. for an hour before the work session. And it's basically just a debrief of all the ideas. Would invite staff to be there as well, because I think there are a lot of things that may play into next year's town board goals. So if there's interest in that, but the 4 of us definitely wanted to get together just to debrief and come up with ideas. So would you be interested?
And, we could talk about what dates. I know there's some of us missing the 12th, so we might look at what dates those people
Okay. How about getting an email out and seeing when you can't be, and we'll work around?
The manager's going to do that because of the meeting.
Okay, great. Okay. On The July 4th events, I realize, have been quite well publicized, but I got a suggestion after the Morgul that it would have been helpful to have the concert list on the eBurst, via eBurst, just as that extra final, hey, here's the concert. So I therefore would suggest on July 4th, maybe a few days ahead, we put that all out, the schedule out on the eBurst, so that we get as much community participation as we can. And Scott, if you wouldn't mind, you gave a great response to the resident question on the Sagamore drainage fixes. Would you mind articulating that in your time as to what the schedule on the Sagamore drainage?
Unfortunately, I don't recall. I know we're currently out for bid. We've recently received the design, but whether it was the second meeting in July or the first meeting in August, at which time the board is scheduled, I don't have my look ahead. You've probably got it.
I just wanted the people watching from Sagamore to know that that is actively being addressed by staff. And you anticipate having that drainage issue up there corrected by winter of this year, is that correct?
Oh, certainly. I believe that it's about a 3-week construction project, so if the board were to approve bids at the end of July, conceivably the work could be completed by the end of August. If it's the first meeting in August, by the middle of September, but certainly long before the snow flies.
7/26 is when we're addressing it, if I'm reading that correctly.
And just as a sort of public service notice, this is the first time I go through the roundabout constantly, but today an adult male cyclist was going through at rush hour and didn't bother to stop at the corner, and instead went through the crosswalk at full speed and almost got creamed by he went straight over to the trailhead, so he almost got creamed by the person turning right as well as this person coming through. So just it's summer, and if drivers and cyclists alike would try to be a little careful, it was nip and tuck there. That's all.
Great, thanks. Mr. Randall?
Nothing for reports.
Okay, Ms. Carberry?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Mr. Harden? Okay, that brings us to item number 5, which is public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
Good evening, Board and Mayor. George Cuffman, 109 South 4th. The first thing I want to do is thank everyone that's involved in having the pole fire wagon, which is an antique that belongs to the original town, set up in the corner the way it was supposed to be. I appreciate that very much, everybody that was involved in it, especially you, Sandy, you had a lot to do with that. Thank you. And then I got another question to ask you, and maybe you can give me an answer. How many more executive sessions are we going to have on town manager's evaluation? Come executive session. We do not like executive session. Let's get your opinions out in the open. We elect you, and that's what we want to know, what your opinions are on this. As you know, I draw Social Security, and I draw PERA, which I worked several years for both. I got information from the federal government. Zero raises for 2 years on both. They took away our senior citizens' rights. So you know the economy's down. So let's just be careful what we're doing here, because people are going to be unhappy if you step the way you've been stepping. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional public comments?
Hi there, I'm Rochelle Rittmaster. I've lived in Sagamore for, well, many, many years. And I'm coming down to kind of maybe now dovetail a comment onto the redirection of that one item that was somehow directing organized sports into the Town 9 Park. And I guess what I would just like to be encouraging the board to do is let's start to think about how we're going to actually execute on the plans that have been out there, the results of charrettes that have helped conceive what kinds of features work well for a neighborhood park that is going to serve over 250 households that are right there nearby. I don't know how many more years we're supposed to wait for this. Plans have been fleshed out for quite a while. Maybe some, fine touches to the end need to be added in because there's an evolution in thinking of features that are useful in parks that can service children, that can service older folks, and really make it a draw for the two neighborhoods and possibly three. So it's gone on a long time, and I don't understand why this has been in such a long process in contrast to something that, came up relatively quickly, the three-themed park, or whatever you want to call it. Acreage gets devoted, time gets devoted, monies get devoted, and it's like, well, what are we, chopped liver? We have two largely undefined fields. Believe me, the neighbors use them, they appreciate them, but it's time to really finish it now as a true functioning neighborhood park. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive. I'm going to echo a lot of that. I've come up here before you every year asking about budgets for finishing the Town Night Park, and to hear discussions about a Little League ball field, to watch, like Rochelle just indicated, an entire community park be developed. And again, time, energy, and dollars spent, and still no progress on a park that was master planned 5 years ago, I guess, and now budgeted out to 2013 is very, very, very frustrating to see dollars even being bantied about, even if it's just investigate. $350,000 for a ball field, even an investigation is, it just seems inappropriate when we haven't even implemented a plan that we talked about now 5 years ago. I won't drag it on anymore. You get the idea. So if we could please get ProStack focused on that and try to get it done, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Thank you. Additional public comments? Seeing none, that brings us to item number 6, presentations. Mr. Randall?
We have 2 brief presentations this evening. I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce to both the board and to the community our new police sergeant, Sergeant Jim Chamberlain. Jim, if you come forward. Jim has been assigned to the town of Superior by the Boulder County Sheriff's Department. He'll be replacing, for the last month, has already been on duty, replacing Sergeant Steve Cullen, who's taken a reassignment within the Sheriff's Department. Jim comes to us incredibly highly recommended by his superiors at the Sheriff's Department. Had the pleasure of meeting with both the mayor and I prior to his appointment. We were very comfortable with his assignment, and I have to say that after the first month of working together, it's been a seamless transition. So while I know a couple of you have had an opportunity to meet personally, both the mayor at lunch and I think a couple of board members at the Morgul event, I wanted the board to have an opportunity to meet Jim.
Great. Any words for us? Anything you'd like to say? And Mike, if you don't have to, don't need to be putting you on the spot.
I'm still getting my feet wet and learning some of the things around the town. So.
Great. Well, thanks for stepping up to the plate, and we wish you best of luck, and I think we'll have a good working relationship. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We've had a couple of extraordinary events within the community, and I know Jim takes personal, umbrage at it, but at the same time, he's also taking a lot of credit for the ability to hopefully get new housing in a expanded sheriff substation. So I tell him to take the credit when you can, because you're going to take the blame on some of the other stuff. But
yes,
it's been a fine addition.
And item number 2.
The second one is the town. First of all, the town as a partner in the U.S. 36 Mayors and Commissioners Coalition recently received a very prestigious award from DRCOG at the DRCOG annual banquet back in late April. The entire 36 coalition of all the municipalities in the 36 corridor received what's referred to as the Gold Award for Collaboration in recognition of all the efforts that have gone on in support of the proposed improvements to US 36. Most recently, the attaining of the Tiger Grant, now the pursuit of additional loan funding to help make those improvements, some other federal entitlements through the stimulus grant program. So on behalf of the town, or for the town, we have the award. I'd like to give it to the mayor. The Gold Award from DRCOG.
Thank
we
you.
will present that.
Great.
And then recognizing Andrew's personal contributions, he also gets one for his home.
For my decorating pleasure.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Town staff obviously does the, I get the plaque, but the town staff does the work, so I appreciate all the help that Jay and everybody from town staff does to this project. It's a huge deal. So thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes for the June 14th, 2010 Board of Trustees meeting, acceptance of the minutes of the Planning Commission and Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee meetings, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Planning Commission, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Open Space Advisory Committee, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, and an adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Highway Technologies, Inc. for street striping. Is there a motion? Trustee Skumatz, a second. Trustee Ciarelli or Trustee Gross. Thank you. Discussion. My only discussion about this is, we've appointed some members to various committees tonight. I have to say that we had unbelievable candidates coming forward to apply to these committees, and it really speaks volumes to the participation of residents in town and the qualifications they have. And I think that I speak for the rest of the board, thanking everybody for stepping forward, and we'd love to see the remaining members somehow get worked into some of our other committees, because we think that they're very talented and will have significant assets for the town. So with that, Phyllis.
Cirilli?
Yes.
Gregorius?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Skumatz?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Great, thanks. That motion carries. Anything else to come before
No
the
further
board this
business.
evening? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to consider personnel matters pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, parent 4, parent F, regarding the town manager's evaluation. Motion by Trustee Skumatz. Is there a second? Trustee Williams. All in favor? That's unanimous. We're in executive session. Thank you. I'll close it when we're done.